Um, when I was 9 years old, I was at Squeaking Point, which was a family shack where we went for vacations now and again. It was owned by my uncle, my mother's brother. But when I was 9, I was there, and my dad was running a weekend for young people to get interested in missions. And so he sat around the table outside with about 20 to 25 young people and just talked about the biblical basis of missions and talked about the world and its needs. And he challenged everybody, you should think about serving the Lord overseas. Well, at that weekend, I was only 9, and I was sitting at the edge of the crowd listening, and God spoke it to my heart, and I went out and stood on the foreshore, out looking over the water, and I said to the Lord, I said, if you want me to be a missionary, just send a streak of lightning, because I want to know whether I should or not. And sure enough, a streak of lightning went across the sky. One streak, there was no more, and it was gone. That was it. And so from that time on, I sort of knew that God wanted me to be involved in missions. Well, I went to high school, and high school really was sort of an uneventful time for me. Uh, it was. I had a few friends. One of my friends was in our church, and he was on the bus and in the same group as I was in. And so, but let's see, I've lost my track now. After high school, I graduated from high school, and I decided, okay, I need to get a job to save some money. Now, my brother Alan was 2 years older than me, and so he said, look, I want to go on a trip. And so he said to me, you work and earn some money and you can come too. And so I got this job in a clothing store. And it was run by a Christian family that we knew that was in the assemblies in Tasmania. They were a fine family. In fact, my dad led the grandparents to the Lord, so they always had a heart for us. And so the guy who opened this new store, brand new store, he said to me, do you want a job in the men's department? And I said, sure. And so I've forgotten how much I earned, but it wasn't very much. But I was put in the men's department with another Christian guy who was an old man, and he was kind of a crabby old man, and he kind of kept telling me what to do, and it was really, after about 3 months, I felt like this is a waste of time. So I said, okay, I'm going to look for another job. So I went up the street to a bank, the Hobart Savings Bank, and I said, I saw a sign in the window that said they needed a teller in the bank. So I went in and talked to the man, and he was a Christian from the Baptist church, Ivan Busher, a really fine Christian man. And so he said to me, okay, I'll hire you. And he hired me, and so I was a teller in the bank for a couple of years. But it was during that time that he began to sort of encourage me and disciple me. And then another man also had me over to his house every week for a Bible study. And in that Bible study, he kept pushing us to use our gifts. And I'd never heard anything about the gifts before. And he said, what gifts do you have? And you should be starting to use them for the Lord. So that opened up a whole new thought for me. And then after the end of 2 years, my brother Alan and I left, and we got on the boat and set off for our trip across the world to London. And we set off on a 2-year hitchhiking tour after we got to Europe. But it was during that period of time I went to what is Sri Lanka today, what was Ceylon then, and I had never seen Buddhism before, and it just opened my eyes, and I just couldn't grasp the poverty and the deformed people walking around the streets and all kinds of sad things that impacted us. And then we went to India, to Bombay, and Mumbai it is now. And again, we were impacted by the masses of people. And then we got to England and got jobs in a place in London and worked for 6 months. And then we took off on a 4-month hitchhiking tour around Europe and the Middle East. And we got to every country in Europe. We got to all the countries in the Middle East. And then after that trip, which really impacted us as we saw a lot of the biblical places and saw all the needs of Europe, had a fantastic time. We lived in youth hostels, and you could stay in a youth hostel for ten cents a night, and that was very cheap. We used to live, I think it was on $1 a day, and that we'd hitchhike, and then we'd buy some bread and cheese for lunch, and then we'd get a hot meal every night in the youth hostel, and then we could stay for 10 cents. So for about $1 a day, we lived for months and traveled tens of thousands of miles, learning and growing. And then we finally got a flight to Canada.